Hello, and welcome to the Warming Up with Excel workshop, brought to you by the Graduate Statistics Studio here at Fresno State. Let's go ahead and talk about the display. So here we see A, B, C, D, goes through the whole alphabet and more. These are called columns. So we have column A, column B, column D, column G, and so on. Next up, we have rows. These are the numbers 1, 2, 3, 15, 21. These are called rows. They go all the way across. Each individual box we see here is called a cell, and each cell has a name. This one is column E, row 4, or also known as cell E4. If we go over here to the name box, we can see that. This name box is also a great way to change the name. We can call this one the good cell. Now, Microsoft Excel doesn't like spaces for its cell references, so you can't use any spaces. If you can use underscores, periods, in this instance, no spaces at all, both of those work. Now, we'll talk more about those in another one of our workshop videos, but for now, just know that you can name each cell. Now we have sheets. We can create more sheets by pressing the plus sign. We have sheet 1. We can even provide names for our sheets. So we'll call this one Warming Up with Excel. If you're naming the sheets, you can use spaces. However, it's just a good habit to get into not using them. Next up, we have what's called ribbons. So like many Office programs that you may have used, each one of these are called ribbons. We have the Home ribbon, the Insert ribbon, the Page Layout, Formulas, Data, Review, and View ribbons. We're going to be spending most of our time in this video on Home and Insert. Now let's talk about entering data into this data set. So if this is your first time, it may seem unfamiliar or alien. What we need to do is create a tabular data set. Now, the word tabular just means presented in a table. It's important to use it early on in your data collection process, so that way it makes it easier to read, easily adaptable to other analysis programs, and it just ends up being a time saver overall. So how that's done is that each column represents a single variable, and each row represents a single participant or case or subject, whatever it is that you're looking at. So let's go ahead and create some variables to start off. Let's have an ID variable. Let's have a group variable. We'll have score 1 and score 2. Now, what we're doing here is just some hypothetical study. Maybe we're looking at graduate students. We're looking at different classes. So in fact, let's call this one class instead of group. We'll have 20 people. Now, this could get pretty tiresome constantly typing in numbers all the way to 20. What we could do instead is if we highlight the entire section and we go to the box in the bottom right corner of the highlighted section, our cursor will turn into this filled in plus sign. If we click and drag all the way down, it fills into 20. And that's exactly what we want. So we have class A and class B. And let's do the same thing that we did in the previous one. So notice on the side that it says class A, and when I move down one, it now says class B. That's just letting you know that it's doing exactly what we told it to do. So now we have class A and class B. And let's now come up with some data. We're just going to make up data on a scale of 1 to 100. Okay, so I've gone ahead and created the data off screen so that way you don't have to sit here and watch me type the entire time. So let's just go over this real quick. So we're doing a study where we want to test people's scores between two classes. We've given every student an ID, so we have at least 10 students in each class. We have two classes, Class A and Class B. And we have two different scores. We have score 1 and score 2. Maybe we gave them some sort of test, and we wanted to see how well they performed after the test. Uh, because this is random data, We probably won't find anything, but that's okay because the purposes of this video is to get you familiar with Excel. Let's talk briefly about AutoSum, sort, find and replace, and filter. These are ways that can help save you time or do minor things in Excel. Let's start with just summing up a section. Let's take score 2 and we want to find the sum of score 2. If we highlight this entire section, we see down at the bottom bar, we see it gives us an average, 39.25. It gives us a count, which is just how many we have selected, 20, and the sum, 785. Now, there is one other way to create the sum, or a few other ways, but one of the more interesting ways is we go over to the sigma symbol over here, we press it, it creates a new cell, and it says 785, which, as we looked before, was our previous sum. When we look now, we see our new sum is 1,570. This is because we now have a count of 21. We're including the cell that we just created. If we uninclude it, we see that it returns to 785, just like before. If we did it over in this section here, we would end up with the same, or a different result, but the same principles apply. We get an average, a count, and a new sum. So let's now talk about sorting the data. We have it right now in class A, class B, class A, class B. But what if we wanted to make sure that it was class A first, then class B? So if we go over to the editing and we hit sort and filter, we go over to custom sort, we click on it, we end up with this screen here. So right away, we'll notice that the top row doesn't seem to be highlighted. And that's because we have this checked off right here. My data has headers. So that is one of the benefits of using tabular data is now our headers are included as well. If we uncheck this, it highlights them. And instead of using that first row, when we want to sort by, it's asking us column. Now, with only 4 columns, it's not that much of a big deal. However, when you end up with 100 plus variables, it becomes very difficult to sort easily by trying to remember which column they're in. So if we have them set up tabularly, we can hit my data has headers, and now when we sort by, it takes the first cell and gives it a name. So we have ID, class, score 1, and score 2. So let's go ahead and sort by class. We want sort on values, and we want the order A to Z. So what we should see is that all of the A's are up top and all of the B's are down below, which is exactly what happens. If we go back over to custom sort, we can also include new levels. So maybe we also want to sort by class, but we also want to sort by score 1. We want values smallest to largest. So what this will do is it'll first sort by class, A to B, then it will take each A group and sort them from least to largest, and then take each B group from least to largest. So let's go ahead and see that. We press it, we see score 1 is 2, that's the smallest value. If we go down to score B, or class B, we see 14 is the smallest value, and it ascends in order of value. Now, say we've made a mistake. We accidentally called it class B, but we should have called it class C. We go over to these binoculars over here, we can hit find and select, we'll hit replace, and we want to find class B, because remember, we want to change it to class C. So let's go ahead and find the first one. There it is. We can hit replace, replace, or we can hit replace all if we're confident that the area we're looking at is the only thing we're going to replace. We don't want to replace something else by accident. So if we replace all, we have all done. We made 8 replacements. Now you'll notice that there are no more class Bs anywhere. Another way to do this is if you wanted a specific section to be changed, but you want to ignore all the other sections. So maybe we had the word class B written over here. Instead of just hitting find and replace, that would take everyone what we want to do instead is we want to just highlight the section and we'll hit find and replace. Now, what do you think will happen when we hit find next? Well, what should happen is that it won't find any class Bs because in the section we've highlighted, there are no class Bs. So if we find next, we couldn't find anything that you were looking for. However, we know that there's one right there, but that is because we've highlighted a specific section, so it will ignore everything else. Let's go ahead and delete that. And now let's talk about filters. Filters are a great way to filter your data. If we go over to sort and filter, we can click on filter and it creates a filter for all of these. Now, what we'll do with them is if we want to only look at class A or C, we'll hit select all and then we'll click class A. So now we'll just look at class A. And here we are. The only thing that is highlight or available to us is class A. So now we can highlight score 1 and we get a different sum than what we had earlier. The sum with class A and what was class B, now class C, was over 1,000. Now it's 469. Before we score 2, the sum was 765, I believe, and now it's 459 for class A. If we go over to that filter again, we include class C, remove class A, and we check out the sum, it's 326 now. So that is how you would filter data. It makes it easier to analyze data, get a quick look at something, but it only works if you prepare your data tabularly, like we've done already. Excel has different ways to format cells. So under the Home ribbon, in the Style section, we have 3 different options for formatting cells. We have conditional formatting, format as a table, and cell styles. If we click on cell styles, we'll notice that there are a ton of different formats. Now these are just the appearance of them. If we highlight all of score 1, we can make them green. If we highlight all of score, or just some of score 2, we can make them this right here. Now if we wanted to remove them, we can go back over to cell styles and turn them normal again. We can even create conditional formatting. Say we wanted to know all of the students in our classes that we have, those of them who got above a 70 on score 1 and score 2. So if we highlight this section, one second, I missed one. If we hit conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, we see that there are a few different options here. So we wanted to highlight everyone who got greater than 70 points. So let's hit greater than. Let's change this to dark green text. And then let's change it to 70. So notice right away that when I type 70, things change. If I type 10, most of it's highlighted. 20, less, 30, 40, and so on. So let's just do 70. And if we press OK, now we can quickly identify those who scored above a 70. And an interesting thing, try using a filter with some of this conditional formatting. See what happens. So if we try and remove this formatting by going over here, you'll notice that it doesn't change it. So we have to go a bit beyond that. Under the editing section, there's this eraser right here. We want to clear formats, and that'll remove everything. And the last thing that we can do is format this section as a table. If we find any look we want, let's choose a light blue look. Let's make it like this. So it'll automatically highlight the section that it thinks you want to use. You can change it at any time. So by using this, we'll go and highlight that entire section. It's exactly what it thought we wanted to use, but just to show you how. And we want my data or my table has headers. We want this selected because we actually do have headers. If we do not have it selected, what will end up happening is that Excel will give it headers for you. It'll call it column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4, but that's not accurate. So let's keep the my table has headers. When we press OK, it creates a table for us. It even gives us a built-in filter. So here's the ID filter, here's the class filter, and so on. Now it's time for the last part of the workshop, which is tables and charts. We're going to go through making a bar graph, a scatter plot, a line graph, and we're going to do two graphs in one. So let's first start with creating a bar graph. Say we want to identify the sum of class A and the sum of class C. Well, we could do that by highlighting all of class A and then highlighting all of class B, but there's another way we can do that. We want to do that visually. So that way it gives people an idea of how the difference looks in a bar chart form. So if we highlight class A to all the scores for score 1 and all of class C and all of the scores for score 1, we go over here, we're going to use what's called a column chart. Now, when we click on it, this isn't exactly what we wanted. This just shows us each participant for class A and each participant for class C and what their score was. It's not exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and delete that. What we actually want is if we go back over to insert, if we click on recommended charts, we'll notice that this is the one that was just created for us. This one down here is just the same one that it created for us, but now it's turned to the side. But you'll notice this one in the middle actually looks exactly like what we want. So when we press OK, what it's going to do is it creates what's called a pivot chart. And don't worry about it right now. That's for another workshop. But this is exactly what we wanted to see. So let's go ahead and clean this up just a little bit. We want to hide these value field buttons. Let's hide all of them. We want to, let's get rid of the grid lines and maybe change the color. Give it a monochromatic grayscale. And now we have the sum of score 1 based on class. Now let's go back over to, no, notice that it created sheet 6. But let's go back up to the warming up with Excel sheet. And let's now create a scatter plot. So if we highlight score 1 and score 2, our headers, and then we go all the way down. We go to insert. We want this one right over here. Insert scatter, and let's select the first one. So there we have it, a scatter plot. Now let's clean this one up a little bit. Let's get rid of this. Let's create axis titles, get rid of those grid lines, and maybe change the color. So here we have an APA style scatter plot. But, you're probably wondering, how do you know which is the x-axis and which is the y-axis? Well, with Excel, the x-axis is the first column that you've highlighted. The y-axis will be the second column that you've highlighted. So we know this one to be score 1, and we know this one to be score 2. And so this is a perfect APA style scatter plot that we could use anywhere else. Let's go ahead and delete that, move it out of the way. If we select score 1, go to insert, we can create a line graph. So here we have this maybe over time, each participant and their scores as they go up. We could even create a trend line. You could do a trend line on the scatter plot as well. Now, because this goes up and then down based on formatting, it's not as accurate as it should be. But that's for another time. Now what we want to do is, let's say we wanted to create 2 and 1. If we highlight score 1 and score 2, we go over to insert. Let's click on recommended charts. If we choose all charts, this tab right here, we'll go down to combo. Now, it wants us to make score 1 a clustered column and score 2 a line. We can do that, but let's see what other options they have. Maybe if we made this one a scatter, and maybe we made this one a side. You can tell which one's a secondary axis over here, instead of doing that one, let's just do a column. The secondary axis just gives you another y-axis on the side. It represents it in the units of the score 2. Let's not worry about that. And here we have a combined combo chart. And that is everything for the Warming Up with Excel video. Thank you for watching.